7:00. This is December 13th, and this is the Budget Committee meeting. I'll call the meeting to order, and if we can begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So our next item is public input, and hopefully everybody's at home watching us live or on TV, because there's nobody in the audience here. Next item, we have 2 sets of minutes that we haven't gotten to yet. So if we want to start with November 15th, are there any changes or corrections or deletions?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of November 15th. As written.
I second.
It's been made and seconded. There was a small change that I had already informed Michelle about. It's on page 7, and it's about midway, line 302. It says, Mrs. Couture commented, sports team enrollment can decline when it should actually be school enrollment can decline. So instead of sports team, the word should be school. So I'd already submitted that to Michelle, but I wanted to make sure people are aware of that change. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? So they pass 6-0-0. Then on November 29th, again, I had 2 small adjustments on page 2 that I already gave to Michelle. The top of page 2, it talks about the ornament, and the sentence is, she will present us with an ornament, and it was actually, she will present an ornament. So just a small correction there. And then at the bottom of the page, the very last line, she noted that 2% would be 55,000. Actually, it should have been 65,000. So those 2 small changes. Are there any others?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of November 29th as amended.
Is there a second? Made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain.
1 abstain. So 5-0-1. Correspondence, other than the usual monthly weekly reports. Just some updates after our last meeting as to what the results were from our votes. That is all. And then, of course, the email about warrants and minutes and whatnot, the usual housekeeping things. There haven't been any other correspondence that I'm aware of. Are there any follow-up questions or any concerns or whatever that people have had since the last meeting? When we finished our changes to the school budget or anything that's come up with the town budget. All right, well, I'll jump right in then. School district budget. I'll just kind of give you a little update from where we left off at our last meeting. We ended up making $240,000 in reductions from co-curricular, from athletics, from the general fund, salaries and benefits, and from special transportation. That brought us to within about $34,000 of the default budget, and actually only about $600 more than last year's general fund budget. So it's almost level funded. So that is where we left off. In terms of the warrant articles, we got a draft of the warrant articles from the school district today. Obviously, the first part of it is about voting. The deliberative session and then voting on March 12th. There are 2 school board positions open, 2 3-year terms open. Article 1 is the main operating budget. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote at the first session of the annual school district meeting for purposes set forth herein totaling $22,865,428. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $22,814,602, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Litchfield School District or by law, or the school board may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10 and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The tax impact is not listed here, but I actually have it calculated as 46 cents is the projected increase based on the changes we made. If it was the default, the projection is for 42 cents. So that is where Article 1 stands. Are there any comments, questions, discussion? And if not, then we need to either recommend or not recommend, so we need a motion.
Can I just, yeah, I thought we were waiting till next week to vote on these, no?
We are, on some of them they can vote, but
Yeah, so this article is basically the decisions we made on the 29th. So this one we can make a recommendation on because this is our work.
Mhm.
The other ones, no, we cannot, unless people choose to, but we would not be expected to make a decision on the other articles tonight.
just to let you know, the default might be adjusted.
The default can be adjusted
Okay.
right up to the day that
I
the
just
ballots are printed.
wanted to
That's
let you
not
know.
our call.
When you were reading, Article 4, that's what I thought I was going along with. You have to-
Article, no, I'm not on article.
It's on the email, unless you told otherwise, it's the one I'm going off of.
Oh, so did I read the, I'm going off the school district. So there was the school district one and the town one.
All right, looking at the town one.
Okay. Yeah, so on the town, they usually have a whole bunch of planning board and whatnot that goes first, however many they have. So that would be Article 4 on the town. But this is Article 1 for the school district.
Okay.
And I don't have an extra copy, but it was,
Sorry.
I think I emailed it. Today?
It's in the budget committee shared
Talking
folder.
about the warrants, you emailed it today.
Okay,
the draft.
so
9:52 a.m.
9:52 a.m. Yeah, so this is basically approving the number that we came up with at the end of our last meeting.
I was on the wrong email.
And what happens if it gets voted down here? It just says I'm not recommended on the ballot.
Right.
So I'm not sure if you want to have that vote this week or if you want to hold off to next week. I know I'm voting against it, but not for the same reason the school board's going to vote against it. The school board's clearly going to vote against it because it's not their number. I'm going to vote against it because I think we did not cut or take the reductions that we ought to have taken. And so when we're that close to the default budget, I think you could accomplish everything you want and then some using the lower number. And so, because I would have gone even lower. So I'm not comfortable voting in favor of the budget. So if I vote no, he votes no for a different reason, you're awfully close to a not recommended budget line.
It doesn't matter to me. It is unusual because we're missing 3 people. So we've got 3 people who won't have an opportunity to weigh in.
I would table it for next week. I think you want to see on the ballot the full 9. So I would
I will not be here next week.
8. 8 looks better than 6.
The night that it becomes official is after our hearing on January 10th. So,
You have plenty of time to vote for it then.
yeah.
But the only people who can reopen the vote are somebody who's changing from a no to a yes.
You know,
So if they vote it now and I don't reconsider my vote, and he's not going to reconsider his vote, and if somebody else chooses not to reconsider the vote, then you can't. Can you revote it unless it changes?
So
No, I think it's
I-
only if it changes.
no,
Isn't
at deliberative, it's only if it changes.
Okay.
But up until the hearing date, that's why we're holding a hearing, to get input from the community. So then we can revote
Okay.
based on community input. We can make changes. We can,
Right, but
so-
it wouldn't change before the hearing, though.
it shouldn't change before the hearing, other than the default if new information comes up. It doesn't matter to me, but I'd be curious to know, is the school board directing you to vote no? Is that what their decision is?
So, yeah.
Okay. It's fine with me. We can just look at it and acknowledge that's the number we came up with 2 weeks ago and move on to the next one.
Unless somebody wants to make the motion to vote, but even if I didn't think it would stand a chance of failing, I think that the number on the recommended, not recommended budget should be more of a full complement of the committee than 6.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, the budget committee cannot not recommend the budget. It is their budget. We have to go forward with a number. So we cannot not recommend a budget. You can change it until such time that we get a number that everybody agrees on, but we cannot not recommend a budget because that is our job for RSA.
So then I should vote it and then make it so.
Then changes have to be made until everybody or till a majority agrees to it.
So maybe it should be voted now. I can get my reduction.
I'm just telling you, our job under RSA is to bring forth a budget. So some number has to be brought forth. If everybody votes no,
Do we have an update on the transportation contract? Because that could affect the number too.
No, because they met because of the Mike had a passing family, so they pushed it back a week.
So
we
would that
haven't
be
even-
resolved before
they
next
met.
Thursday?
They met, but we haven't heard any. I haven't.
They'll be voting on the 19th. The LEA.
No, I'm talking about the school bus contract.
Oh, no, not yet.
So would that
And they
be,
have met, but
No, I
they're
think that-
still going through the contracts.
so we don't know if that'll be resolved before next Thursday.
and I did warn the school district that typically when the budget committee doesn't get information in time to really consider it, generally the response is not support.
Mhm.
So they do understand, and I believe they've made clear to the unions that if the budget committee does not have time to consider the information, that we generally vote not in favor.
Mhm.
All right, well, let's move on to a discussion of Article 2. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Litchfield School District and the Litchfield Education Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at current staffing levels? So these are all 0 right now because an agreement hasn't been reached. This is a placeholder, and they expect to, I believe the association expects to take a vote on ratifying it on the 19th, which will also then be that evening, the school board meeting, which will take a vote to support it or not. So that is why our tentative meeting is actually needed now on the 20th, December 20th. So then Article 3, it's my understanding that this may not come forward at all, but they don't know yet. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Litchfield School District and the Litchfield Support Staff Association, which calls for the following increases in salary and benefits at the current staffing levels? And again, those are all zeros because this is just a placeholder.
So if it doesn't come forward, then we just operate under the current budget with no increases in
Yep.
salaries.
Yep. Article 4, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $28,490 to be added to the operating budget for the purpose of funding salary and benefits for a part-time enrichment tutor position at Litchfield Middle School to support, and there's a blank there, I'm not sure what the to support.
Gave you the wrong one.
Oh, okay.
Which one is it? Oh, yeah,
Four.
this is supposed to be high achieving.
Achieving
learners.
learners.
High achieving learners? Oh, okay, so it's
It
the
didn't
same,
save the changes I made.
Okay, so it's supposed to be the same word as
Mhm.
below high achieving learners.
No, the bottom, the one below is wrong.
Oh,
Didn't
okay.
was
save-
a- I was
it
gonna
didn't
say.
save my changes.
Okay.
So there's only one for an enrichment coordinator?
Yes.
All right.
The second one is a math tutor, and working on that.
It says
Something like struggling and resistant learners, I think it
to
was.
support struggling and resistant learners. All right.
So the question I have on this one, which
Mhm.
anybody here knows that I really want this one, but can the person put in that position based on this wording only operate under enrichment? And the reason I ask is because we have this position at GMS. We've had 4 days of school this week, and she has not been doing enrichment because she gets pulled for subbing. So my concern is, as much as I want this position, will this position stay this, or will this be a go-to for substituting?
I don't know. I'm not aware of what the policy of the school district is in terms of pulling people from other.
I'm all for it if the person is committed to doing this job.
I
If
don't-
this job becomes the first line of defense in substituting, I have a problem. So I would want confirmation that, you know, the wording says that it's going to be an enrichment tutor, that that person will actually be allowed to operate as an enrichment tutor and not half time as a sub.
I don't think that'll be in the warrant, but that'd be something we'd ask. Why?
Yeah.
Why
That's just,
why
it's, I
happening.
want to make sure that we're to the
Yeah,
wording
so-
of this warrant, this person's job will be enrichment.
So is the person who's at GMS a full-time or a part-time position?
Part-time job.
How do they substitute then if they're part-time?
That is an excellent question. And one that really quite infuriates me. So, because,
I'd say that's what you call the principal. And
so
as a parent.
knowing where the priority lies in GMS, which is not with the enrichment person doing the enrichment job, I want to make sure that the LMS enrichment coordinator, since the wording of this says enrichment, will actually be allowed to fully do his, her, whoever's job as written.
So this person is pulled out of the enrichment role to do substituting versus
To
the other way
substitute.
around?
Yep.
I can see it the other way around where they're done with the enrichment, but they have time to do.
I'd just
some-
say this. I'd just say this is two different conversations.
Yeah, so what I would say is,
This should
so,
be.
but I understand, it's
And I
related.
understand, but
So you would need to take up your concern about GMS with the principal. So what we can do is request from the superintendent's office
Mhm.
that confirmation that this will be a priority from the middle school principal and get that assurance.
Right. 'Cause I mean-
I mean, I'd speak as a parent, not a school board member, that I guess it shouldn't be an assurance for, for one. It should be, if they're supposed to be doing another job, are they doing that first?
Yeah.
I think it's two different discussions. It's not
And,
about the
and it
budget.
is that is a principal decision, which is why I say your concern needs to go to the principal and why we just need to get from the superintendent's office assurance from the middle school principal that this is going to be
the wording will be honored. That's all I want.
Any other questions about this position?
Is there a tax impact? There's nothing for tax impacts.
Yeah, he hasn't given me the.
You know what?
Would assume that would.
And
be.
I just saw these, so I did not calculate it either. It should be a matter of cents.
Well, didn't we, the 10,000 for this library was like 3 cents or 2 cents. So I would think that this would be less, 5? Less than? Extrapolating a little bit.
Back of the envelope calculation.
Let's see. Or how much are we raising for the townwide school and then divide?
Divide by that. Just, none of them have a tax impact. Has a tax impact on.
Well, 46 cents is what the current one is to raise.
8, 4, there we go.
42 for the default. So.
Oh. 3 cents.
Less than 5.
3 cents. Which would also be for them for Article 5 as well. So both 4 and 5 are 3 cent tax. Any other discussion?
So mine was tied to Article 4, so I would say for most of the voting, if we're gonna have a higher number next week, might make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me if we want to.
I don't want to vote on, I don't want to say some are more important than others, so let's wait for everybody. I think it's all or nothing. So if we don't vote for the budget, I don't think we should vote on any of the other ones.
So Article 5 is the same language, but this is for a part-time math tutor at the middle school.
So do we not have a tutor currently? Or was it Title I and now we're taking it over?
Title I's reading, I believe. Reading only, isn't it, Michelle?
Usually Title I's reading.
I have no idea. So
I think it's just reading.
So let me ask this. So both these positions are from the middle school. We have, it sounds like we have a enrichment person at GMS. Do we also have a math tutor at GMS?
Believe,
I think there's a
Yes.
couple.
but is it I have to ask, is it a stipend position though?
I forget, but I know that there's,
Too?
I'm sure it's in the budget.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure there's at least one in.
yeah, I would just be curious how that's working at the elementary school, I guess. Both of these positions and what we think it's going to accomplish at the middle school.
Have you seen the math curriculum? It's needed.
I don't know.
There are a lot of, I know that there's a lot of students struggling with math in the middle school. And so, whether that's a function of the curriculum or the function of, but something needs to be done to address that.
Generally, we've changed math programs a lot, it seems like, over the last 10 years, but generally math flows up. So if you've got people struggling at the middle school, it's because it wasn't taught well enough at the elementary.
Oh, I agree. Let me tell you, the elementary curriculum.
So that's why I guess I'm asking the question of, are we seeing an impact at the elementary school with both of these positions? And so then what do we hope to accomplish by adding these positions at the middle school? Any other discussion? All right, Article 6. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to establish a teacher hiring expendable trust fund under the provisions of RSA 198:20-C for the purpose of hiring additional teachers for unexpected increases in enrollment and to raise and appropriate the sum of $75,000 to be placed in this fund. This sum is to come from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1 with no amount to be raised from taxation. Further, to name the school board as agents to expend from the fund, and that would be a zero tax impact.
Well, we have the discussion every time we have one of those. It's
Right.
zero tax impact, but
additional tax impact.
but it's also given up.
People, so
Yeah.
is it?
So essentially, it was taken because we had a surplus. We're now saying that we want to put it into a specific fund for this specific reason.
So it won't be an additional impact because the impact already happened
How many classes do we see on the bubble?
on the bubble.
3, I believe, right?
I don't think
what's that?
3
What was
on the
question?
bubble.
3
as far as
questions
the-
are on the bubble in terms of enrollment.
Not on, but they're within spitting distance with, the fact we have so many houses being built and people coming in with more kids.
Yeah, well, the houses that are going in and the younger families moving in, hoping that, that kind of slows down, but
But I know, but if you look at the long-term projections from a couple years ago, we were going to see class sizes of 60. So that was the projections. So now we're at 90. So when we say projections have increased, it really means we haven't declined as far as we should have. So are we stabilizing at 90 or do we really think we're going to get to 100, 110?
We don't know yet.
Well, we don't know because now with full day kindergarten, there is no trend.
Yeah, but you've just
can't-
added a fifth teacher. There's plenty of room now.
But you may.
But you can't
But
go
it
off
can
one
go
year.
up, and or another grade could go up. And
But
the
is it a,
superintendent doesn't want to get into a position where we have to hire another teacher, put it in the budget at the last minute,
Mhm.
and that's what this would alleviate.
and I could see that if I honestly thought that this budget were that tight, but I don't, quite frankly. I think that we've been in this situation before. We've found the money before. And even after we've been in that situation, we still gave back a ton of money. So I don't think that I understand the thought behind it. I understand the reasoning. And if we had a tight budget, I'd support it. But all the things that lead me up to needing to be in place for me to support it aren't there. I don't think it's a tight budget. I don't think our enrollment's going to fluctuate that crazy again. I mean, yes, we had experienced it this year, but for all we know, that's an anomaly. And you just gave yourself a bunch of room in the kindergarten by adding a fifth teacher. So I think it's a very reactionary warrant article to a situation that's occurred once recently. And because we've done it, we've added teachers in the past. And like I said, we still handed back a fist load of money. So
Any other discussion? This article is not one that I would support. We, this current year, they made a reduction of $250,000 in salaries and benefits. And yet we were still able at the last minute, by reprioritizing, able to bring on a first grade teacher. I've been here 26 years and we were growing by leaps and bounds in the 90s. Leaps and bounds. And we were able to accommodate, because I do recall other instances where the day before we had to add a fourth grade teacher. And I do recall instances where we've had to reprioritize and add staff at the last minute. And I think we can do that without a trust fund. So I don't see the need for this. I think there are other priorities, such as all of the repairs, that I would rather see, because keep in mind that money gets prioritized by warrant article. So the first thing, if there's any end of the year money left over, the first thing that gets prioritized are these warrant articles. So that would be my concern. I'd rather have some of the school repairs done before I would set this money aside. Any other thoughts? And I was just looking ahead at both the projections that I did using the old method and the projections that were done by the new person that was hired. I don't see a concern in my mind. I don't see a concern. The numbers are projected to increase, but not dramatically in any one particular grade. So again, I would feel confident that if they did, because obviously this year was an anomaly, if they did, we could deal with it. Anything else on school warrant articles? All right, hearing none, let's move on to the town. Just to recap again where we left off a month or so ago. We, after going through the budget, we made reductions of $32,800 based on the calculations of what it would do to what the tax impact would be. It's 8 cents on the tax rate, and that that's just the base budget. That's not any of the other warrant articles, such as the police union or the health programs. So what we don't have, though, and I was asking John earlier, Troy, you don't have a draft default yet for us to take a look at. I know you have, I saw you have the number in here, but you don't have a budget for us to,
We're going to adopt it Monday night.
okay. So then it will be added to the website so we can take
Yeah.
a look at it. Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, we reviewed it, we didn't approve it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. You did change it. Oh no, that was, there it is, 39,000 for the health services. What I had noticed earlier is you've got the warrant articles for the police contract or placeholders for police contract, and then you've got the health and human services and health agencies under tax impact, but you don't have it calculated into tax cap, the tax cap tab.
Yeah, it's, I can put that in there.
Just, I mean, it would bring
No
it,
one's-
it would bring it over, but that's a decision that the committee hasn't made yet.
Right. What's that number gonna be?
The health agencies.
It's 39. It's 39,037. Yeah, in there.
39037.
What's the tax impact on that one?
Oh, but the tax impact is 4 cents.
Yeah, so it puts your, if that article were to be added and supported, then put you over the tax cap by $10,000.
Yep, $10,000, $10,010 to be exact. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, we haven't made a decision on any of these. There may be people that would rather do that and not the police contract. There may be people that rather cut $10,000 and
So-
support both.
The police contract's not factored into the tax.
And that's just a placeholder
We have a
that,
place.
There's placeholders
Oh, yeah,
there,
okay.
but we don't have exact numbers yet.
Well, maybe the contract came in 10,000 later.
Maybe it did. Maybe it did.
Could you?
And that's my point. That's why I wanted that to be part of the calculation so we can see the whole picture. So again, we got a draft warrant. It was pointed out that on the first page, the deliberative session is actually February 2nd, and Tuesday is actually March 12th.
these last year's dates.
Must be. Change the 2019, but not the,
To his defense, it does say draft on top of it.
it does, absolutely.
No, I'm glad you caught that
That's
because
the
I thought I
whole-
changed those dates, but those are last year's dates.
I'd have one of those panic attacks again this year. Like, I missed it.
All right, so there's election for 2 selectmen for a 3-year term, 2 budget committee for a 3-year term, 1 budget committee for a 2-year term, cemetery trustee, and 2 library trustees. Then Article 2 and Article 3 are reserved for the planning board.
I've not received input from planning board yet, so they could come with 6.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. So,
I just put them in there as just
okay,
placeholders.
so we don't know
Right.
how many, but that's assuming at least 2. All right, so then Article 4 is the operating budget. And Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriation by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth in the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $6,757,953. So I just want to stop there. Does it have to be spelled out in words? Because I noticed in the school warrant, it's spelled out in words with the
No,
numbers.
It doesn't have to be. In
Okay.
fact, sometimes I find that when you do that, you just open the door for
Confusion.
more mistakes.
Okay. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $6,713,245, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Litchfield or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Estimated 2019 tax rate impact is 8 cents. So the selectmen have not acted on this yet, only
We were-
because they,
Kind of waiting for the budget committee, I think.
okay.
We weren't sure you were done with the budget, so we haven't taken a vote yet.
Okay.
We'd like you to be done with the budget.
So again, I would say because we're missing 3 people and that's a pretty significant number, that we should hold off and do this when we have a higher number of attendees. Although thinking about it, next week, I do know Jack is still supposed to be gone and Jess will be gone. I expect Jen and I expect Nikki. So we'll still have a,
+1, right?
yeah,
Net up 1.
yeah.
Not that we won't miss you, but the number on the ballot will be 1 higher.
The one time,
Well, you'll have
the
an
one I
opportunity-
can't make.
You have an opportunity to change it again
That's right.
at your,
That's
Yeah,
true.
at the hearing. So, I mean,
you even have deliberative too.
only if it changes it deliberative.
Sure. That's right. If it doesn't change, it doesn't do it.
We can
We'll
hold
open it up
it.
for a buck.
Yeah, we can hold any number of votes up to our, you know, after our
Okay.
hearing and make changes. Once we submit it for deliberative session, and we actually have there's a date, so we could even meet a day or 2 after that. But once we submit it, then it can only be changed if it changes at deliberative session.
So I think the question then on the budget really comes down to how people want to vote on if we're assuming the police contract is pretty close, how do people want to vote on the human services and health agencies one? Because if we want to vote in favor of it, then we need to reduce the town budget.
Yep.
If people are going to vote against it, well, then you can move forward.
I thought we talked about adding something in there about the numbers being based on charges from Litchfield. Because that'd be my only concern as a resident looking at it, almost like there's not a correlation between
So,
the services they provide.
yeah, I think we talked about maybe having them have an opportunity at deliberative to talk about it or have someone represent what they've asked us and what they gave us.
I would expect at least the mental health center, since they're half of it.
It feels horrible saying it, just reading it almost sounds like we're donating to charity, not covering costs that we incur.
Yeah. I do think, so deliberative is one thing and advertising up to the vote is another thing. But when people walk in there and read this warrant, you have to assume the only information they have is what
What's
they
there.
read on this
What's
warrant. So,
This is not the first time they've seen it though. This warrant's been like this a couple times.
It's been a lot smaller.
Well, yeah, we got a lot more requests this year. I would urge.
You chose to
ask,
fully fund them. I don't
If you're
think
going
you
to,
want.
if you're going to decide not to support something, then I would not support this. Let it go to the voters for them to do a face-up vote. This does not, you don't have to recommend it. You can say not recommend because of tax cap. The voters still have a choice if they want to do it. And in deliberative, they can go off and modify it too.
Mhm.
And we can even make it clear at deliberative, they can modify if they want to modify.
I wish you would just pull out the mental health and make that a separate one, because I don't want to vote yes or no. Vote no because I think, wow, I'm sure they do great work, but 20,000, and then sink everybody else. Whereas I can say, well, I can vote yes on everybody else, vote no on that because I think it's too high. But that's just me. I see that big
Getting a little greedy.
$20,000 number, and I'm sure they do a lot of great work in town, but $20,000.
No, instead of, the other option is, instead of just going and cutting the operating budget, to be able to support this article is,
It must be that.
it's not uncommon for towns to decide that they're going to support a lump sum figure. And then leave it up to the Board of Selectmen, or the Board of Selectmen can create a small little committee once they've got a certain figure and they figure out how they're going to give it out.
Is the end
I've done that before in other towns where they actually had a
Honestly, I
committee.
like that better.
They had a committee. They said, we're going to give $20,000. The committee meets with these groups and they decide how they're going to disperse it.
Because what I haven't liked about it in the past is we get a whole bunch of them and the board of selectmen says we're going to fund 20% of each one. Well, what, based on what? Why 20%? Why not 40%? I like the idea of that way, having somebody actually go through them. I don't have the time to do it.
And they have an interview, they sit down, they interview with them and they learn that maybe Greater National Mental Health, yeah, our standard request is based on this formula, it's $19,000, but are we going to walk away from maybe a $12,000 donation? No, we'd be grateful for whatever we can get. And the committee or the board of selectmen then just prioritizes everything based on a lot of what the needs are for the community. If you see a certain group really in our community doing a lot of work, there may be more support to help that
Well,
agency.
Well, then why don't we just, we won't take it, let's not take action on tonight.
Right,
Let's
because
go
that
through it at
would-
the board on Monday.
Yeah, that's a selectman.
Right, because
Right.
Troy's concept you just brought up is the first time I've heard it. I'm not sure.
I just thought of it
It's not a
sitting
bad idea. Well, you need to start thinking about it soon. Okay?
Well,
It's not deliberative yet.
I
Anything
just-
can change.
So we can go back on Monday. Troy and I'll bring it back to the board and, we'll take the feedback, obviously, and maybe suggest that as an idea. We just do a lump sum and we say we're going to put it behind a committee that's going to make a decision with which one of these entities get it, if the voters support them.
As a voter, I think I would be more comfortable with that than just saying, oh, we got 20 letters, let's fully fund them, or 20 letters, let's take 10% of each.
Yeah, it was easy when it was 18,000.
Hey, Troy.
Every year it's been going up and up. And up.
You know,
Well, it's 'cause we keep-
It's all zero.
Of course, it's why I'm on every mailing list.
So the Anne Marie House, for example, is an agency that came forward and talked to the board. They didn't make a specific request for funding. So we put the zero in there, probably it should be $1, and thought that deliberative session, someone could amend this article and add money if they wanted to. But I think John's right. I think we could go back to the board and talk about changing this article.
So the other thing I like about that is if you have a committee, it doesn't have to be doled all out at once. What if somebody comes forward in May with a need, and then you can say, well, now if we have a committee with funds to expend throughout the course of the year, well, then you're free to do it.
You can just also add this to our local fund. As a line of local budget.
I like the article. I just think you need to change it to a committee.
Another committee.
Yeah, see, I'm not one who shies away from committees. So I like the fact that more people have an opportunity to get involved. Somebody could maybe be able to meet once a month or once every 2 months, as opposed to meeting every Thursday night from October to January. They might have it's an opportunity for more people to possibly get involved.
Yep.
So I say do it. It's got my vote.
All right, so we're going to let the selectmen take another look at that and decide how they want
That's
to go
right,
forward
that's
with that.
Yep.
Article 7, Town Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed in the Earned Time Accrual Expendable Trust Fund as previously established. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. Estimated 2019 tax rate impact 0. So you want to,
over the police car
did I?
I don't have a number yet.
Oh,
because we started talking about the health
that's
agency.
exactly, I know. See,
Yeah.
that's what happens.
Yeah.
So
We can't not much to talk about anyway. We don't know what it is.
well, that's what I was going to say. Let's jump back to Article 5 for a minute. When do you expect an answer on the police contract?
Monday night, we've been advised that the union has voted to ratify the contract,
Okay.
and Monday night we'll be talking to the board about ratification, and then we can make it public.
Okay.
So why wasn't it discussed Monday, this past Monday?
It was just
Oh.
ratified this week. sometime.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The board's aware of the content and what the contract is, but
Okay.
they took no action on it until the union approved it.
All right.
And since I'm going to do some simple division later, how many police officers do we have in the department that will be affected by this contract?
Say 12, 13.
12, 13.
Okay. So then back to the accrual expendable trust fund. So do you want to explain again what this trust fund is? It was established last year, but what does it do and why do we want to put money in it?
Okay, so this is an expendable trust fund that's been established for quite a
Couple
few
years, yeah.
good 5-6 years now. It represents, this is when we have our employees who accrue earned time on an annual basis, they're eligible to sell back some of that time. There's also, if an employee leaves employment, we have to pay them out all of their earned time. If an employee retires, they get to cash in their earned time. So this fund is there to cover those costs, along with just the wages that are paid out, all of the payroll costs, New Hampshire State Retirement, workers' comp, federal taxes come out of this fund as well. So it's not something that we carry in the operating budget. It's funded through the expendable trust fund. We have made some progress where on the non-union side, we've got a little bit more aggressive on our minimum usage and the annual minimum usage. So when people actually reach that maximum accrual level, it's a use it, lose it situation. Whereas before, they could go over the cap, and then when we hit the end of the year, they could sell back that time. So we tightened that up a little bit, and we saw a reduction in the sellbacks this year. Can't talk to you about it, but we made some progress as well in the union contract.
What is the current union contract? Because obviously it hasn't changed yet because it hasn't been ratified. But
Well,
current
the
terms.
problem with the current union contract, we have employees that can accrue up to 960 hours. And then there is another group of employees who can accrue up to 660 hours. So when when you start having those amounts on the books, and an employee retires or they
And it's
leave,
paid at full.
it's
Not
paid
like
out at,
it's not like the school where they pay out at like a portion of it. It's paid out at
it's
full.
paid out 100%. And currently, right now, it's something that's audited. So I wanted to bring the audit in and just check the number, because each year the auditors, they actually determine what the number is for the, if for any reason, you've heard me say this before, but if the town decided to just close business today, we would be obligated to pay all of our employees out all their accrued time. And the auditors take a look at that, and their unfunded liability at this point, like the full cost is $200,000 roughly.
So how much do we have?
So currently, right now, the fund balance is, we have right now $77,000 in the fund, but we're going to pay out. I'm guessing right now, we're in that process where people are submitting their annual requests. The last I checked, we're at about $45,000 of payout this year. That will leave us a balance of $32,000. And we also know that we have, again, we've got some liabilities of at least one employee, if not two, that could retire without, at any given time. And they have, if they did, that payout could be as much as $30,000.
I would say about 40. but
I was
yeah.
gonna say,
Does anybody else see a problem with that?
That's why we're trying to fix it. That's why.
Well, no, but ending the whole process.
Well, you can't though. Some
But
of them.
why can't you? If you're the why can't you negotiate that out of the
Well,
contract?
that's what they're trying to do.
That's what they're working
I
on.
mean,
Yeah, that's,
it's just in the private sector that doesn't happen.
that does.
I think
It does to
Very,
some
very
extent.
rarely does it happen.
No,
It
it
doesn't.
definitely does.
I get my job. I work with a very big company, and it's use it or lose it.
See, now-
What I don't get paid 900 hours, even at $30 an hour. It's like $27,000. It's ridiculous.
We don't have anyone at that level.
Yeah.
But in the contract right now, they could after, and you'd have to work for the town for 25 years, 30 years to get up to that point.
You
That's
have
still an
unfunded
insane
liabilities. It's I just don't understand how anybody can look at that and say that's a good idea.
So the thing to keep in mind when you negotiate, though, that means you have to give something up. So it's a balancing act, and that's why they sit down and try to get some of that back. But you also have to figure out, give some of what they're requesting. So it's something that's going to take time to.
I
Well,
fully
yeah.
understand unions. I'm part of one. I get it. But I don't, it just seems, it puts a strain on the town. I mean, as a taxpayer, it kills me that someone can actually do, you retire and then we're also going to give you, what, 25, 30,000, however many thousands of dollars just for retiring because they didn't use sick time or vacation time that they should have used anyway.
So the only real recourse you have is to vote down the contract until you've come across a contract you can support. So, I mean, if they went without a contract for a few years, they'd start feeling the pressure of maybe we need to do something that
Yeah,
could be
but
approved.
it's, so I guess that's why I'm asking,
But I
do
think
the
it's a-
selectmen ever vote it down? Do they ever say,
No, it's
it's-
about, it's the taxpayers voting it down.
It's the taxpayers. vote.
voting
but
it down.
the selectmen are the ones that
Well,
recommend
we
it,
can get
right?
into arbitration at that point. There's a whole lot of things that can happen if we don't try to get to at least an even kind of contract.
Good
The voters
faith.
have the final say.
Do the
In
voters,
every contract over the last 3 contract cycles, we've been working to get some of those things out of there. I think you'll see the continuing that same effort.
do the voters understand all these unfunded liabilities or these, do they get it that you potentially have to pay these people out this much money for not using vacation or sick time? Do they understand it?
Well, it's not, they don't use it. We have benefits in this town. We have non-union and union benefits. One of them is earn time. So we tell employees that when you work for us, and for the number of years you work for us, you earn time. In exchange for that, you get a day off with pay, or you get a week off.
Well,
or 2 weeks,
I understand
right?
earn time. I guess it
So-
should be used within a certain amount. And
So we have requirements that say you're going to earn it, and at a minimum, you have to use X number of days per year. And we only allow you to accrue X number of earned time hours. We're working on trying to get the caps down. We've made some progress there. You'll hear about that next week. And there's also the reason that the town got into the sellback, allowing employees to sell back, was that they looked at the cost of overtime, and they felt that, hey, if there's a way that we can reduce earned time, the amount that these employees have on the books, that every time we can sell this time back at straight pay, we're reducing our overtime liability. Because when a police officer takes time off, we're paying that police officer earned time, and then we're paying overtime for an officer to come in and cover that shift.
I would think it would be.
So we're trying to,
You would have to have a staff larger than we have to have someone that doesn't already have hours in the books that week.
so that's why you got a couple
Fully
of things
staffed.
going on, it's.
And yeah, we're not fully staffed neither, so we're always short one. or
Yeah, if
two
you only have
officers.
12 or 13.
Right, because that
employees.
person, whatever happened to that person, but.
So I think what would be helpful would be like a nice little chart. How many hours was the limit? How many is it currently? What is this? What is this? So we can see at least track the changes and then make it more obvious to voters as to what are we voting for. Because if people saw, wow, you could accrue 960, but now it's down to something lower, they're like, okay, well, at least we're moving in the right direction.
What are we
But,
talking about? We talking about the contract? Or talking about
well, to get the yeah,
The Article 7 is separate
Yeah,
to the contract.
you're right.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
He used that as a reason to help understand why we have the
Yeah.
trust fund.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I get it, but your Article 7 is about creating or using a trust fund.
We already
Pay it.
have, we already have.
You have one,
Continue
but-
to fund it.
Right, it's
Yeah.
funding it, but you're asking in this article to keep funding this trust fund to pay out overtime or not overtime, but
Earned
earn
time.
time.
Current time, I could buy out, yeah.
But right now
Well,
we're contractually obligated.
right.
So the question is, do we have the funds to pay it? And will it change in the future? I don't
But
know.
let's correct it. It's not just the contract side of the house. It's also the non-contract employees too.
So then we're not contractually obligated to fund it all.
No, we're contract, we have an employment agreement that they're allowed to have 320 hours of earned time if they
Which is a contract.
see that it is a contract.
Yeah.
Then it's contractually
My point is
obligated.
union contract versus non-union. My
Yeah.
point is it's not related to, let's just not confuse this is union related. This is-
Right. It's
This is the
both
town-wide.
union and non.
There's a legal liability here.
We have a liability for our benefits, yes.
At some point, I wasn't here, but at some point in time, someone thought it was best to have the expendable trust fund, which is probably the best way to manage this. This could simply be an operating cost that could be in the budget. It's the cost of doing
Right, so
business.
if
Used to
people
be
vote
part
this
of our-
down,
And I'm sure that they felt that you had years where you didn't need to fund you didn't need the funds, and there were years that you had a large request. So that's why they turned to the expendable trust fund.
The
So you
trust
can manage
fund,
it a little bit
the
better.
trust fund was put in place to keep the operating budget flat. and level. So
How
they
does
can
no
just-
means no affect it?
It doesn't. It just means we can't put money in it. There's
We're
still
not,
funding.
we're
it.
just asking.
But
for
you're just
funding.
your money is going from one place to the other. I mean, there's going to be a tax impact on it. So if you're not putting it in your operating budget and you're using a fund for it, you're still getting paid by the taxpayers, no matter what, whether it comes out of your operating budget or out of this trust fund. Either way, taxpayers are still funding it.
That's true.
So if
Bottom
it
line,
got
right?
voted down, then you would have to find money in your budget rather than
No,
the taxpayers paying for it.
we're asking.
You're using taxpayer fund, but he's gonna have to find money in his budget to pay for that item.
No. So if you're right, if what's in the fund today gets exhausted and we have the liability, we have to now find the money in our budget somewhere.
Right.
Right. That's correct. But we have $70,000 in there. Troy laid out what we believe our costs are going to be going into next year. That's why we want to keep the fund solvent. That's why we asked to put more money in it. The requests for these funds are coming out of the fund balance, which means there is no tax. It's already raised, but it's in the sign. We're asking to use it versus
Right.
going back to taxes.
And I guess it's kind of semantics when you're saying there is no tax impact.
There's no tax increase.
Right. You're not
That's all.
increasing it. However, the money was already paid for and it could get sent
Right.
back.
Right.
So there is a tax impact.
But
Well, it's
ultimately,
There was a tax impact. Now it's neutral.
well, it could be a negative impact if money went back. So you're not increasing,
Mhm.
but people are giving up a decrease they would otherwise get
Well, think about
if
it
you
though.
give it back.
This liability exists, whether you fund it out of the end of the year or you fund it out of your budget, it's the same money.
So
So
realistically,
you either give 70 back less or you raise 70 more. So it
Right.
But
doesn't
if
matter.
If you keep giving the money, it's never going to change.
But that's not what this fund does.
That's
That's a
affecting the
different
contracts.
discussion. So this is an existing obligation. They're working to decrease that obligation,
But
but this existing obligation, you either take it out of the current budget or you budget for it, and it's kind of a wash.
I know, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here. It's just, I get that it has to be funded either way, that they're out of their budget or we do this. But when you keep paying for something over and over, it's not going to change. And all I'm trying to do is, if anybody's actually watching this or not, just get people to understand it. It comes, you're paying for this. And if you keep paying for it, it won't change. That's all I'm trying to say.
But
I
even,
think-
but even if you don't pay for it, it still has to be paid for until the selectmen can.
But if you don't provide the money for it,
Even if you don't provide the money,
eventually,
it's-
maybe they'll negotiate it out or something like
But
that.
it's years.
There's
not
always going
a
to, there's always
budget.
going to be earned time. That I would be hard pressed to see that come out of anybody's contract. You wouldn't get anybody to work here if you completely got rid of earned time. I get that we want to try to reduce it because that's an absurd amount of hours, but there's always going to have to be some sort of accrued liability to pay for earned time that we're going to have to pay for one way or the other.
Right. And I understand your opinion on the earned time, and as you would probably understand mine. I mean, I think people have vacation, use it. If you don't want to use it, I don't think you should get paid extra for it.
I don't
But
think anybody's getting paid
No one
extra
gets paid
for it.
extra. I think what you're hearing is that
Well, you're getting paid to work, and then you can basically get paid an extra check for a vacation you never used. You don't. That's not use it or lose it. You use it or you lose it.
yeah, I see how you're saying it, but I think in the case of the police department, if it's we're focusing on, when people take time off, they impact our overtime budget.
I get that.
That's how the whole buyout process started to come around.
Because it was a benefit to
It was
the
a
town.
benefit to the town because
And
we
the
were saving
taxpayer.
money in the long run by, if they don't want to take their vacation, because some officers are pretty dedicated and because of the way the shifts are, they don't really take swaths of time. They were working and they were just buying back the benefit and saving us probably half of what they bought back in increases in the overtime budget.
Maybe it doesn't have to be cut out altogether.
And it's not, again,
When you say 900 hours, I'm not saying you said up to or something.
Yep.
I
Well,
calculate that,
let's-
27 grand, that's a ton of money.
I just want to make sure we clarify some things. So on an annual basis, folks accrue earned time. Everyone knows that, right? In any business, you hope that everyone gets earned time. Another benefit to our earned time program is that we allow employees, this is union and non-union, on an annual basis to sell back up to 20 days of earned time. That's optional on the employee's part. If they want to sell back 20 hours, they can.
20 hours or 20 days?
20 days. They can sell up to 20 days.
Jeez.
Another part that they're faced with is that it is staggered with the non-union employees. For example, if you've only been working for the town for, say 5 years, I think you can accrue up to no more than 240 hours of earned time. Okay. If you earn more, once you've hit that 240, it's a use it or lose it scenario.
Mhm.
So we do have that use it, lose it when you hit those caps. The folks, there is no one at 960 hours, but if someone were at 960 hours and they retired, I just gave that as an example, this fund would pay for all that time that was accrued when they retired or they left employment. So this is serving really two purposes. One, the benefit where we allow employees to sell back up to 20 days per year. And for employees who leave employment and we pay out all of their earned time that they have on the books. That's what this fund's for.
And in order to sell 20 days, that means they've been here long enough to accrue 20 days.
That means that it's usually it's more of the senior employees that will have been here for some time. They also have to meet the minimum usage requirement for the year. If they've not met the minimum usage requirement for the year, they cannot sell time back. So they will get themselves into a situation where they could lose earned time. They'll just be taken from their account.
All right.
Yeah.
So we understand now what this fund is and how it's used and why there's a request. Article 8, Technology and Communication Expendable Trust Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a Technology and Communication Expendable Trust Fund per RSA 31:19-A for the purpose and the purchase and repair of technology and communication equipment and software to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be placed in the fund. Further, to name the selectmen as agents to expend from the fund. This sum is to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from taxation. Estimated 2019 tax rate impact is 0. So why are we establishing this fund?
So we thought it was wise to have an expendable trust fund for this purpose. The technology piece is obviously the hardware and software that we have in all of our buildings and facilities. This would allow us, if we had a failure or we're trying to implement new equipment, we would turn to this fund. The biggest piece, really, from what I've been hearing from department heads, is the communication part of it. And we're seeing in our fire department, I'm hearing in police, highway, we've got a lot of investment to make in our communication systems here in town. And I mean, I've been told, I haven't seen the actual study, but we could be looking at anywhere from about $300,000
All to
What?
$1 million.
for communication towers and equipment
So I, no
here in
offense,
town, so that we're all able to communicate with each other.
whatever happened to all the Nextels where you beep beep? I mean, like,
They'll-
for
where
serious.
those are
You don't
anymore.
use that for public safety. So just pretty much every piece of communications gear in this town is more than 20 years old. And it's all 20-year-old technology that is no longer replaceable in some cases. Each department on their own have been addressing it in small pockets. I think in the fire department, you see them buying the handheld radios. But there's also the base or the home systems that have to get replaced too. And that's what we're trying to do, is to start constructing a fund so that we can start tackling these problems pieces by pieces. And we have a plan. We've had a study done a couple years ago.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, and we're actually refreshing it too right now. We're trying to work on refreshing it. But basically, there's a study that basically identified the right locations for receiver sites and transmitter sites. Happened to the water tower we have over there, and a few other things. The fire station addition is kind of put a little bit of a change in the plan, so we got to kind of work through that again. But to the point, at the bare, it's $300,000-$400,000 just to start. And that would just be one department. So we're trying to get all the departments to be together so that we're not buying 3 separate systems.
Mhm.
Try and buy one we can use across all the departments. And
Yeah, if you did 3 separate systems, you might as well just give up now because
Right,
that's
exactly.
stupid. But
And at the same time, deal with any failures that we have throughout the budget year. So
yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too. It's worded technology and communications because we do also have a lot of technology that has now run its life course, and we're getting ready to address some of that in our own cycles. But we need to start planning for it as a regular cycle, on a more regular
so
basis.
if this is tackling some needs on the first responders and whatnot, are there grants or anything that we've looked at?
We will, and we have, and we're working with a two-way communications company that's helping us through the grants. The fire department's been looking at different grants. Right now, most of the grant focus right now is on helping us do with the fire station itself. But before we make any expenditures, we'll always look at grants.
Well, I know, but I don't want to create a fund without knowing what my exposure is.
well,
This is just a start.
the grants are not 100% free. That's usually 50-50 match. So
Yeah.
you would have to, and you need to purchase the equipment up front to get reimbursed 50%.
So how did we get to the point where our equipment is 20 years old?
Great question. I asked the same one. So I
we
think
don't
because-
have a capital plan.
No, there is a capital plan that had
Wait.
identified that. I think what happened is that the departments they had their own systems, right? And so they took care of their own things. And I know the fire department's been working very carefully to deal with their coverage issues the PD has. How we got there, I don't know. I think it's a case of, it's a lot of money to invest.
So we just keep avoiding investing it and hope it'll go
Keep on
away.
fixing it, keep on band-aiding it, yeah.
So
This
how,
past winter, I spent more time at one of the cell sites that I don't really want to spend anymore.
so how are we going to prevent getting 20 years behind going forward?
If we are good in putting a system in place, there'll be a life cycle plan that'll be put in place, which we don't have one now. Like I said, we talked back before Troy came on board, the previous town administrator, we worked with a capital outlay plan. We identified a lot of these pieces of gear. We looked at the life cycles, and communications was also on that plan. And so we've got to basically put some funding in place so we can put a program that allow us to refresh it on a more regular basis.
I like to see the program before I go for the funding, though, just so you know.
Well, this is, the unfortunate part is this is not going to do nothing but establish the fund.
Yeah, but it gives me an idea of like 50 grand out of 200 grand or 50 grand out of 2 million because
Well, from the sounds of it, it's going to be
I'm
close to $1 million.
Could be.
which seems crazy for a town this size. So I'd like to see the plan before I help push said plan forward. So
I don't know. My opinion is, I do think the capital reserve plan is needed. I think 50,000 is going to be a drop in the
but
bucket.
why a reserve plan? Why not just start tackling it? Why not just say a warrant article for the next 10 years? We're going to start these purchases and actually do it instead of saving to do it. This is how we're going to implement it.
Well, I think we've talked about saving to do things in other areas. So why wouldn't you
Well, it's
do
not
it here?
we're not talking a fire truck, which is one big purchase. I mean, we're talking, a cell, a couple of towers. Like you can do them independently of each other.
No, you can't. It's all new technology.
But, well, why not wait till the 5G comes out? So maybe you're jumping the gun. So
5G is not. 5G is not going to help you with
Right.
public safety communication.
So that's still going to require a fund.
but is it 200 grand or 2 million?
That's going to obviously be more than the 50,000. So I guess this is two pieces. If you think the fund is going to be needed, and with 20-year-old technology, I can't imagine why it wouldn't. Then that's part A, and then part B is 50,000 the right number? Is it less? Is it more? Or is this a good start or not a good start? So it's kind of
So would the plan be to save up and do it all at once, or would you do it incrementally?
I think it depends on how the study comes back or how the effort comes back, right? So I would say this is a start to fix anything that comes the old crap moments.
Then put it in the operating budget.
You want us to put $50,000 in?
No, I want you to put a realistic number based on what you actually think you're going to need in the operating budget.
I don't know what I need because if I replace a satellite, that's 10 grand.
Mhm.
If I replace another satellite, it's another 10 grand. I just replaced a consulate, was 11 grand. That came out of our operating budget because we had to do it.
But you just said you had a program by the previous town administrator that gave you the life cycle. You should know which equipment
I
is
know.
almost done.
We know that part of it, but we don't have a design yet locked up. We don't have agreements on all the departments. We don't even have access to where we want to put the towers or the radios, the antenna systems and stuff like that yet. So we got to work through all that.
So this is basically then things that go wrong as we're looking to create this plan.
That
the
and also
existing
hopefully if we don't need to
20-year-old
use it,
equipment.
if we don't need to use it, it gets help for that too.
This is simply trying to establish an expendable trust fund for the purpose of technology and communication for the remainder lifespan of this town. I mean, that's why we have expendable trust funds. We have expendable trust funds for the Public Works Department, solid waste, and they're all there for specific purpose, to replace equipment, to fund, sand and salt during really bad winter seasons. This is nothing more than a fund that would help support our technology and communication costs. Always unplanned. At this amount of funding, it's going to be to repair and replace. You're not going to go out and build anything new. You're not going to build new infrastructure with $50,000. But if you get the fund established over time, if we're sitting here next year and we think our unassigned fund balance is healthy enough to put $150,000 or $175,000 into this expendable trust fund, and we have a plan, we would bring that forward.
I guess it's a different philosophy in how you'd use it. To me, the trust funds are for unexpected, unanticipated, unknown costs. We have a plan, and we know how old our equipment is. We know what the cost should be, so we should be budgeting it. That's not what.
But Carrie, you've argued in the past that, well, we know some big expenses coming up in the future. Why don't we set a small amount aside so that we don't have a huge hit on the budget in the future?
But
Why
that's
is
not what
this
we're
different?
hearing. That's not what we're hearing.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's what I'm saying. I think if I'm not articulating it that way, I apologize. But we have some basic stuff we've done in the past. We've come together as a
Mhm.
town, and we've identified all of our needs and requirements.
Mhm.
We've worked with our major vendor. They've come back with some rough ideas how we can do it.
Mhm.
We don't have all the dollars and cents of
Okay.
the cost yet, and nor I think we're very prepared to take on that big of a project.
So when I argue in favor, I know what a fire truck is. I know it's going to cost in between a certain ballpark. This is very abstract. We don't have a scope. We don't have an amount. We don't have a time frame. We don't have any of that. But we're just going to start a fund just because it makes us feel good.
Fire truck can cost any number of various
You know what it is.
options depending on what you put on it. So it's no more of an unknown.
But we can find out. That's why we haven't started because we don't have one in mind. But we could find out. I'm all for.
I
How
think-
much is a fire truck? Divide and conquer. We know it's going to last for 20 years. It's going to cost us
All right,
500 grand.
we didn't
Divide by
do that.
20.
We didn't
So-
do that.
I think I confused this whole thing by trying to sort of lay out the big term, the long-term issue around this. Bottom line is we don't have a fund, we don't have the budget, we don't have the operating budget to deal with the old crap moments. Not just with our communication stuff, which is what I was highlighting,
Mhm.
but just with our regular technology in the buildings.
Mhm.
When I talk about the network gear that runs this building or the fire, we don't have budget to take care of that stuff.
Mhm.
This fund would help us bridge the gap if we do have a moment where it needs to get replaced, or we didn't plan it, or we had an unexpected failure, or those kind of things. But also, we want to use this. We'll be able to leverage this fund when we do a bigger plan. We can apply these funds if we were able to set aside enough to bring forward to the voters. Here's the big project. It's $1 million. Again, I'm a big number, but $1 million project. We're going to offset the cost by the $200,000 we have in the trust fund. The rest will be raised by taxes or other grants and funds, whatever that is. This is just to start that savings plan to
plan.
deal with that issue. And as far as the capital improvements plan, we have that spreadsheet. It has all of our stuff in it. It's probably slightly outdated because of less than a year than it's last time I've seen it. Let's share with them. I know the planning board got a copy of it. I think it's on Google Docs.
Yeah.
Share it. You can take a look at it. I mean, you'll see we've identified all of our equipment, what our expected lifetime of replacements are, and you'll notice a lot of things should have been replaced years ago.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's there.
Yeah, if we can get that plan, that would be great.
Yeah, it's more FYI because I think we have to go back and rehash what our real long-term strategy is going to be, especially where, if you think about the highway department, if you heard the conversation around the highway department, some of the things that were being suggested, we may have to purchase more trucks, stuff like that. We got to really start thinking about what our assets are going to look like going forward.
I'm all for that. I've been arguing for that for years, so I'm all for that.
All
So
right,
it's just there for 8 months and
So- we're gonna get that plan and we're gonna
I
hold
have
off
a
on
cold
this vote
storage
anyways.
fire station. You park it in there.
that's what I
All right.
suggested. You heard me.
Article 9, land
Here with the fire
purchase.
station.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 to purchase a parcel of land in the town of Litchfield described as map 30, lot 1 on Hillcrest Road for the purpose of making ingress and egress safety improvements to the transfer recycling facility and highway garage and provide for future expansion of operational needs. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised
Where
from
is that lot?
taxation. Estimated 2019 tax rate is 0.
Go
So
down towards 3A.
again, what's
What's
this
3A?
and what are we gonna do with it?
So there's a lot that's was posted for sale this summer that abuts our highway and solid waste facility. And the real purpose for purchasing this property is so that we can improve the site distance when we're trying to enter and exit the highway garage.
That's at Hill.
So we have heavy duty trucks trying to come in and out of there. Our plow trucks, our contracted plow trucks. We've got waste management trucks coming in there several times a week with big containers, hauling away our construction debris and just municipal waste and recyclables. And then, of course, we got all of our residents coming in and out at all times. And so we thought it would be the best thing to do to acquire. We have this opportunity to buy the land. Once we get our ownership of the land, then we can begin to start figuring out what the best way would be to improve the site distance. Simple approach will be trying to remove some trees and see if we can just cut back the banks a bit and maybe that can open up site distance. I've also had some discussions with New Hampshire DOT. Actually, it was National Regional Planning Commission when we're having a discussion about this. And they mentioned that if the town actually owned the property, there's state grant funding to address safety concerns where the Hillcrest is a state road.
Right.
It's possible, there's a long waiting list, but it's possible that you could get the state to kick in 80% of the cost and we would kick in 20. And by having ownership of the land, that would constitute our 20% match. So we could do more of a realignment of that curve, if you're familiar with it,
Yeah.
and reconstruct it if we own the property. It was
many
like
acres is it?
sort of at the bottom of Pinecrest and 3A, how that project was done. Kind of similar, same grant funding program.
For 2 acres.
And then, of course, this abuts our highway and solid waste facility. Right now, we don't have any plans for any expansion, but if in the future there was some need to do something, then we would have the land.
So it's currently undeveloped land, correct?
It's undeveloped.
So there's
It
not a
has,
lot of taxes that would come off the record.
That's right.
I could see people like, oh, you're removing it from the tax rolls, but
It
there's
has a
not.
driveway permit through the state, and there is an approved plan to build a duplex.
Is it over an acre? It's gotta be over an acre to be a buildable lot.
Yeah, it's
It's a little, less than 2 though, I thought, right?
But we're not talking like we're taking 10 grand off the tax rolls.
No.
You're taking, because that would be one of people's concern. I could see people, at least people in my circle would be, okay, we're taking it to the town. Well, now it's going to be you're taking that off the tax rolls.
I look at it as actually, if it really could be constructed and built a duplex there, that you're probably actually reducing some of your tax liability of bringing in,
More kids.
More kids.
more
yeah.
kids, because usually I'm not going to say it, but anyhow, it's permitted right now for a duplex, and
I can't see that being a safe place to have a duplex, honestly. That is a
It's a
dangerous.
lot.
That's
I mean, it's
not
a
our
lot. It's
call.
not our
someone
call.
could build a duplex and make it rental or whatever.
So here's my question. The Article 7, Article 8, Article 9. This is the third of those 3 articles. And yet this to me sounds like it would be more of a priority. Because again, when at the end of the fiscal year, they get funded in order. So the first one to get funded would be the earned time. If you didn't have enough money to fund the other 2, they don't get funded. So
You're thinking about end of the year. We're talking about undefined.
I think they get plenty of money for them
So
all, don't
in
you?
the undefined
unassigned?
Yeah, our unassigned, our fund balance
Is
is
healthy.
way too, well, it's very healthy and our auditors can tell it's way too healthy.
Oh, the auditor said way too healthy? That means you should be turning back more money. against
I
the tax-
describe it as way too healthy because it's too healthy.
No, it's our,
Okay.
we're actually, this year, we're taking more from the unassigned fund balance than we've had in previous years.
Okay, so that was my concern. I just wanted to make sure because I know they have to be funded in the order they are, and if there's no concern that these can't be
No,
funded.
this is coming from your unassigned
Okay.
fund
Yeah,
balance.
it's not coming
Alright.
from this year's appropriation.
So
Okay.
my other question would be, have we had an independent appraisal of the land to confirm the 90,000? That would be my only
Have you
concern.
ever bought a lot of land in Litchfield?
I would say that I would, as a taxpayer, want to make sure that I'm paying fair market value, and the way to ensure that is to have it appraised. Due diligence.
If it's an acre or more,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good price.
That's why we.
But on a dangerous turn
So-
on a street, like I'm just saying, as a voter,
If it was a built, so I think the board, I actually think we talked about it, but I know we've asked in the past not to because
Okay.
the amount of, what it's gonna cost us to acquire the land is a lot less than a typical acre in town. And it's to benefit the town side.
so no, there's no independent verification of the price.
No,
Okay,
because
that's
why,
good.
why spend the money if we know it's well in the market?
Right now, I think.
Don't know that it's in the market. That's why I asked for an independent appraisal.
right
So you're
now,
okay with
I-
spending tax dollars to go figure that out?
What is it? I think the
If it's
page-
over by 15 grand and an appraisal cost me 400, I net positive.
when we calculate to calculate the land use change tax, the 1 acre lots that come out of current use on the Page Road development,
Mhm.
the tax is based on $125,000.
Okay.
That's not been appealed by the developer. So I want to say that a building lot right now is about 125,000. So it doesn't matter if it's an acre, acre and a half, 2 acres, about 125,000 for a buildable lot.
Okay.
Actually, I see them going more. When you try to acquire it separately, it gets a lot more.
That's insane.
I know. I'm not disagreeing with you.
I remember where I grew up. It was
All
like
right,
2
any
grand.
other questions on Article 9? So again, we'll save that. Article 10 is just the town flag, and Article 11 is Keno. So.
Didn't we vote for Keno? I thought we-
You didn't. It wasn't on the ballot last
Wasn't
year.
on the ballot.
No, I'm talking, I thought.
I think we did.
I thought the board
Yeah, it would have
voted
been 5.
I thought it'd be unanimous.
Yeah, I think it was.
Tap revenue,
Was.
of course you want.
So, but what does this do though?
It allows like Romanos or
We don't collect any local revenues, but
any restaurant.
we've
food.
we've been approached by at least one local business owner asking, why the town hasn't authorized this. They want to be able to sell, offer Keno in their
Mhm.
establishment. The revenues go to the state, and then I understand it's given back to the towns to help with
kindergarten.
kindergarten costs.
Kindergarten. So I assume when this article is discussed, things like is there an impact on police and security? Is there an impact on traffic? If you've got a business
Keno,
that,
like the scratch tickets or
Well,
something.
it's
at the-
it's an
or
electronic
the-
machine. And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
From everything I've heard, just on the listserv with town and city managers in the state, that question was posed, and everyone said, "We don't even know what's going on in our town."
I think I went to one
It's-
place.
it's-
with, it was just like on
People
the
are really
TV.
kind of
Yeah,
describing it as a scratch cards.
okay, yeah, all right.
I mean, you
The local businesses like it because it's bringing people into their business. And
It's just something you do to pass time while you wait for your food, as
Yeah.
I recall. It's not like it's.
I have no idea.
It's not like you
Keno
go on
is.
I don't know what it
silent
is
slots
either.
or
I
anything.
have no clue, so.
I see it
It's
typically.
Gambling of some
probably
sort.
go try it just to see what it is.
I think like Northside Grill in Hudson has it in their bar.
Yeah, I think it's something you do while you wait for your
just
food to
kinda
arrive.
Yeah.
Huh.
So,
That's my limited understanding. I've never played.
All right, any other questions on town warrant articles?
Is there any way of changing the wording of estimated tax rate impact of 0 to, plus or minus? I don't like how it says there's no tax impact because there is.
The wording is what comes out of DRA.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is, what it is it's a no estimated tax increase.
Yeah.
Right.
So there won't be an increase. So they're not going to notice that you've given up a decrease.
Right.
Because
Most
how do you
people are gonna
notice
look
that?
at this and say, oh, it's not going to cost me anything. But in reality, it is costing.
Yeah, usually that discussion is had at deliberative to some degree, but this is, the wording is established by the Department of Revenue Administration. There's like a legal wording that has to explain that when we adopted the
Right.
article to allow us to put the estimated tax impact on there.
So there's no way of getting around it, basically.
No.
No.
Just people have to understand that when it says no estimated tax increase, you're really taking money that you could otherwise use to offset taxes. You've already paid it. You're just using it for something else. So
Yeah, taxes have already been paid on it.
Yeah.
Because quite honestly, obviously we have an accumulating fund. It doesn't necessarily go back to reduce the taxes. So it's sitting in a fund.
it ought
Well,
to.
what it does right now is the way this town uses it, we always obviously use it for cash flow. The number one purpose right now of the unassigned fund balance, these are all funds that are uncommitted, and we use it
That makes
for
sense.
cash flow. So we don't borrow money in anticipation of taxes.
Because your year runs to
All the
January
tan.
1st,
So
right?
some towns who don't have a healthy fund balance,
And people pay taxes.
when you got to keep funding the school and you got to run your government. So you need to go out and borrow money for 3 months, 6 months. You pay interest on top of that until you get your tax money coming in. Because we run our government from the 1st of January. The first tax bills don't go out until July. So we're cash flowing the school and the town government for 6 months. And that we use the unassigned fund balance to do that. And then what we've done is when we get our annual audit report, we always have a discussion with the auditors. How healthy is it? You know, if we used 100,000 this year towards some issues we'd like to address, and they give us guidance. So
Is there
this year, the report was, yeah, you had a great year. You collected more revenues than you budgeted. You didn't spend all your money. And the money that we had set aside to grant abatements, which we call overlay, you didn't grant all those abatements. So you turned in over $200,000. So now we're having special warrant articles where we're spending that money that was turned in.
Right. So you're taking that money that was already collected, that wasn't spent, and then putting it towards something else instead of it going back.
And we're doing that.
People.
And the reason that we're doing that is that we're trying to address needs that we've identified as needs. And we're not trying to, because we look at these as one-time costs. If we funded them through the operating budget, then you would see a spike or an increase in your operating budget. So we're really trying to use the unassigned fund balance to fund some of these items to keep the tax rate as stable as we can.
And
That's the whole purpose.
And there's two different ways that the budget works. The school district on June 30th, whatever's left over automatically goes to reduce taxes, unless you have one of these warrant articles. The town, at the end of the fiscal year, the money doesn't automatically go back. A lot of it goes into this special fund and it sits there.
Is there a limit to
So-
how much that can be?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
only the
200%?
voters can release it.
Yeah. So this money isn't necessarily going to offset the taxes. It's sitting in a fund to be used for town cash flow, town business. It could offset taxes, but not necessarily because they needed to stay in the town fund.
Troy, that's the same fund we typically in October we use to offset taxes at this tax rating time, right?
You could, but you
We
don't
could.
have to.
have.
Right.
You probably have in the past, but, you know, for maybe the last 4 years, 6 years, you have not. But you could use some of that money to reduce taxes. I don't like to do that. I don't recommend it because what happens is they go and, you know, you hear the government talk about the rainy day fund.
Well, I understand.
So you get the selectmen or, you know, there's a group of people and they use the rainy day fund to reduce taxes.
Did you just really do that?
What's that? And then the next
In
year you
another
go to
town.
set
It's another
taxes.
town.
There's no more money in the rainy day fund. So now we got to raise taxes. And that's what I'm saying. I really like what we've laid out here. We look at is we're trying to stabilize the tax rate.
And you see where it's going towards because we're asking for permission to use it for this
The
purpose.
town gives permission to use it for certain projects.
Well, I understand. I guess my
I can't even think of the word, but if there's a big pot of money there, do some of the town officials start looking and say, hey, we have this much money. Well, what else is on the agenda that we could use it for? And then start coming up with ideas on how to use it instead of giving it back to people.
But
Understand having
but we
money to
have
give
come
back.
We have to
Yeah,
come to the voters.
That's what these warrant articles
Right,
are. So the
then you
voters
do that.
Yeah, so
I
the
get
voters
that.
could say no.
Well, they can, but then when they look at this and they don't realize, hey, there's all this money's being held in reserve somewhere. They don't, and then they look at this and they say, estimated tax impact of zero. We give $50,000 to this fund. It's not going to cost me anything. I understand you can't change the wording, but I think it's a dangerous thing too, because a lot of people are uninformed. They don't get it. So then, and they don't look at any of these things before they go to vote. Then they look at this thing and right in the article, it's saying, oh, there's no tax impact. So it's not going to cost me anything, but in
Well, if you-
reality, it does.
If
Well-
you approve, I'm just telling the voters that if you vote in support of this article, it will not increase your taxes. It's going to be funded 100% from the unassigned fund balance. I'm not going to raise taxes from you for this purpose.
And there's a difference between the town and the school district. So you can make that argument with the school district, but the town is different and you can't really make that same exact argument.
What I don't like about it is it makes it look like you're not spending any money. So I think because it looks like, oh, I'm getting something for nothing because I don't have to pay any taxes for it. So if there were a way to like, or have we published or indicated to people what the size of that fund balance is, and then as we
Every year.
subtract from it?
There's an audit every
There's
year.
an
that's in
audit,
the
it's on
town
our
report.
website.
And it's published on the town website every year.
Okay, because I'm just saying, if I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, well, look at all that work I'm getting to do, and it's not going to cost me a dime. But realistically, I went from
But-
$1 million to 600,000 because I've approved all of these. Well, that might change people, or they're like, oh wow, we have 600 grand. Well, there's a couple other projects I'm aware of that I could have brought forward and had, pitched to the,
The big pot of money, just so you know, the actual cash
Let's
on
not
these.
describe it as big pot of money.
So
the
I-
funds
I
currently
have no idea. We
unassigned.
started this thing, big pot of money. I wanted to tell you what the big pot of money is on
Balance
December
sheet?
31st, 2017. That's only determined once a year by the
Okay.
financial auditors. Was $1,499,764.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
Well, what's the
$1.5
6
million.
month? But what's the
Yeah,
6
a lot of
month
money to me.
payroll?
To me, I think there's a lot of money.
But you have to consider too what 6 months payroll is because they don't
We're
collect
fund-
taxes
we're
until
funding-
July.
Right, and we're funding the school, that's our cash flow for the school budgets and the town budget. So the school's 25 million plus whatever it is, and the town's 5, that's a
How
lot of
do you-
cash flow.
But but theirs are paid before your year starts. So shouldn't you already have the money to not have to cash flow it?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
When we get
When they have to make a payment to the school
When you
district,
hit May and June,
Mhm.
we're using
We're
the
tapping.
1.5 million. We're using that.
And what's the check that goes to the
And the school cooperates 100% with us. They actually will defer, the payments that we're required to make. We work with them and they'll say, yeah, we can defer our payment for a couple more weeks. So we have to work very closely together twice a year. So cash gets very tight in May and June, and then again in October, November. And that's when that 1.5 million is used. If it dropped below, 1.2 million, we'd probably be borrowing money and temporary tax anticipation notes, probably 3-4%.
And we've never had to do that.
So you haven't had to do it.
yeah, it looks as though, if I've got the right number, that every 6 months, the town has to pay over $7 million to the school district. So they got to pay that whether they've collected taxes or not.
Right.
So that's where
Right.
this fund then is necessary. All right. I
Well,
think
so what is the auditor's recommended amount? If you have that, what does the auditors consider a healthy amount since we are very healthy?
They have they have a range that they use as 2 ranges, and it's a percentage of
Liability rate.
of your school, county government, and the gross appropriate, or maybe it's the net, either gross or net appropriations of the school, town, and county tax.
Okay.
So there's a range that they recommend that you retain anywhere from 8% up to 18%. I think. We're probably, our retainage is somewhere I believe in the 10%, 12% range.
Okay.
So pretty middle of the road.
It's pretty middle of the road.
So that
we're
doesn't
not-
sound very, very healthy. It sounds healthy.
No, it is.
A lot
apparently.
of towns do not do planning ahead, and a lot of towns are borrowing money. So that's why they
Glad
feel
we're
like
not doing that.
we're doing things correctly.
I've been very clear on my opinion on borrowing, so I'm very pleased that we're not.
Yeah, in 10 years that I've been on it, we haven't had to. And I don't think, even in the history of the town, I don't think we've had to. Or,
It's been a long
probably
time.
It's been a long
It's
time.
been a long
Good.
time.
I mean, they built this building in cash, so.
See, so it's doable.
Oh, this is a
Yeah, you want.
Small building, though. All right. All right. So that's it for town warrant articles. Any other input for tonight? We'll be meeting next week, December 20th, 7:00. That's when we hope to get all of our final information. Again, we won't get the information in time to make any decisions next week. We'll go to, and there may be some that are, maybe there's some that are simple and you want to approve them, but we don't have to. And those will go to hearing on January 10th, which is
We're not going to do the early meeting that we sometimes do, like the first week in January, to vote on them, or no? I'm fine with not doing it.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly up
We
to you.
have in the past, I believe, after like the first. I seem to remember meeting like the 3rd and the 7th or something, or the 4th. Like,
That was when budget went right up to hearing. We've
Oh,
actually
true.
streamlined it a
Right.
lot, so we don't meet now
Okay.
until the hearing.
works for me.
But then after the hearing.
So we're gonna go to hearing with warrants that aren't yay or nay by us, and we're comfortable with
Because
that.
the goal of the hearing is to get input from the community to influence or not our decision makings.
Fine.
The hearing, I believe, will be at Campbell High School. Okay, so it will be at Campbell. It'll be both town and school district hearings. We do them one right after the other. And then we meet afterwards to make our final decisions and send the budget forward for deliberatives.
Sounds good.
So we'll be back next week, those who can be here. There's still no public, so hopefully our public is watching. And if you have any questions, you can find our email on the town website.
Okay.
And is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.